Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Chucky Schumer blasts the SAVE Act. 28% of U.S. voters. What about them? I'll tell you. CNN viewership collapsing. FBI Director Kash Patel. The U.S. will send a couple of hundred troops. I'll tell you where. The Justice Department requesting to overturn the contempt of Congress for who? I'll tell you soon. And major airlines disruptions going on due to all kinds of things. Welcome to the broadcast. I'm Sam Bushman. Happy to have you along. We always tell the truth on the broadcast to the best of our ability, ladies and gentlemen. We don't try to attack people. We do try to talk about issues. We do try to discuss principles. And we can disagree and agree with anybody, anytime, anywhere. That doesn't mean we want to be disagreeable. Doesn't mean we want to be unkind. Doesn't mean we want to make it personal. It does mean that we want to use the supreme law of the land, the Constitution for the United States of America, as our guide. Okay, we want the checks and balances to function properly. We want each branch of government, executive, legislative, and judicial, to carry out their proper designated, delegated responsibilities via the supreme law of our land. That's on the general level. And those responsibilities are separate. There's three branches, folks, and they're clear and defined. Okay? If it's in the list, you can do it. And if you can't, look at the 9th and 10th Amendments that says, hey, anything we didn't put in here is left to the people and to the states, respectively. The states have much broader powers, but they still have the separation of powers, the judicial, the executive, the legislative, even at the state level. And the state and the general government are dual sovereigns. You got 50 republics bound together by a supreme law of the land at the general level, and each state has its own state constitution. That's because we delegated some responsibility to the general government. We delegated other responsibilities to the states. And the same thing's true all the way down to the highest level of government. No, that's not D.C. That's the lowest level of government, the furthest from the people. The highest level of government is your local jurisdiction, your county. In a voting block, it's your precinct. If we could get back to precincts, by the way, that's something that I call for big time. We need precinct voting, same-day voting, paper ballot voting, verification of the counts via count watchers who swear to the count by the penalty, under the penalty of perjury. We can video the counts, too, in case people believe there's some hanky going on. You can review it, kind of like a ball game. You know, you review it from 46 angles and go, hey, man, here's what happened. We're going to adjudicate. That could be done before people sign to the vote count of the penalty of perjury. But if you did it all the way at the precinct level, that's the smart move. Trump trying to nationalize the elections, and I think that's a disaster. But we'll get into that right now. So Senator Chuck Schumer blasts the SAVE Act. Says that it's DOA, or dead on arrival. Is he right? Well, we'll get to that. Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. That's what the SAFE Act stands for, right? Right? So that's what it's called. It's the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or SAVE Act. Right? All right, now, that SAVE Act is being debated until the cows come home. And you say, well, what is it, Sam? What exactly is this thing? I would say it like this. The goal is to nationalize the election process by saying everybody who votes in national elections has to prove with an ID that they're an American citizen. Otherwise, can't vote. And at first glance, it sounds like that's the answer, Sam. By golly, that's the way to go. But it isn't the way to go, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not trying to side with the Democrats. I'm not trying to promote Senator Chuck Schumer. I'm not trying to attack Donald Trump or go against Donald or anything like that. To me, this is a principle-based discussion. And I want to be on the right side, the correct side, the honest, honorable side of principle every time. So you say, Sam, the Constitution provides for the general government to be involved. Congress has responsibility relating to the elections. So do the states, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this slight mod by Congress could be done very easily. I understand all that. But I'm telling you right now, here's the problem. Based on the principle that you give them an inch and they'll take a mile, that's the reality. So the only reason Chuck Schumer is blasting the SAVE Act is because right now the Democrats are against it because the Republicans want it, and it's really just a Trump derangement syndrome. They hate Donald. My opposition to this SAVE Act has nothing to do with Donald or Schumer or anybody else. It has to do with this: you give them an inch and they'll take a mile discussion. Let me explain. Right now, the states decide how the elections work, which I think is fine. And I think down to the precinct level, we ought to be able to decide these things. But at first, if the government can say, hey, you got to be an American citizen to vote, and you give them that opportunity or authority, so to speak, then what will they eventually add to that list? Remember, the founders warned us oftentimes. They don't like lists, because if you can create a list, then it's not a matter of if this item can belong. It's a matter of, can I add it to the list or take it away from the list? It's not a matter of if we have a right to do it in the first place. So this is a line in the sand saying, no, we don't need the general government involved in elections at that level. Remember, we tried to ask Congress to confirm if the elections were legitimate, and they absolutely shirked their duty. They claimed there was an insurrection on January the 6th, and they didn't even look into it. They used that as an excuse to sidestep their obligation, their duty to look into election fraud. Now Donald's trying to do it. All kinds of groups are trying to do it. The FBI's looking into it in Georgia and everything else. But Congress still isn't doing their job. Congress hasn't even looked at it. Now, they should have done it that same day, but they didn't. But they should have at least returned to it, but they didn't. See, so you don't want to rely on the general government to do anything. Understand this. Whatever the legitimate general government should be doing, they're not doing, for the most part. And whatever they should not be doing, they're doing. That's the problem, right? Congress wants to say, well, let's let this Federal Reserve people control the money. No, we gave you delegated responsibility, Congress, to deal with the currency, honest money. We didn't give you authority to delegate that to a third-party banking cartel. We didn't do that. But you did it anyway. And now we're 100-plus years in. It's very hard to stop. Okay? Now the same thing's true here. They want to try to have Congress, make law and change the elections the way they work. That's disaster. Okay? Let the local municipalities handle this. You say, well, Sam, you should be a citizen to vote, shouldn't you? Yes, you should. But do we need the general government to control that? Pretty soon they'll have a database, a federal government voter election database. And it says, yes, Sam Bushman's a citizen. And yes, Sam Bushman can vote. But then if you're not very careful, they'll say, but Sam Bushman has to vote for the Republican or the Democratic Party. It's a moral hazard to vote for a third party, which has no chance, no prayer in heck to. And then pretty soon they'll start adding to that list. Well, you got to be a citizen and you got to be in financial good standing. If you owe the IRS money, you can't vote because you're in jeopardy. You're a lawbreaker. Or I don't know what the rules will be. I'm just telling you, once you let them get their elephant's nose in the tent, look out, baby, because all bets are off. You give them an inch and they'll take a mile. So that's why I'm opposing the SAVE Act. I don't need the general government involved in elections. Okay? Let me give you an example to make my point, because you think, oh, Sam, come on, you say that, and it's just not true. It's true in everything else. You tell me what. Well, let me give you this example. Social Security used to start out as a safety net for the American people back in, the 30s or something? And it said right on the Social Security card not to be used for identification purposes. Yeah. And then later they took that not to be used for identification purposes off. And now they're using my Social Security number for all kinds of identification. Anywhere I go, anything I do with finance or anybody else, doctor's offices and all kinds of private businesses saying, what's your Social Security number? Got to have that. Can't get life insurance without your Social Security number. You got to, and now they're using it for identification. See, that's the inch and the mile thing I'm discussing. Hey, they started out saying, don't worry, the Social Security is just a safety net. It won't harm anybody. It's no problem. And it won't be used for identification. And then lo and behold, now it's used for identification. And the problem is then governments get hacked and leak my Social Security number. And now this federal government national identifier is used against me in so many ways it's not even funny. So the general government has proven not only do they lie, they said it wouldn't be used for identification purposes. Now it is. But adding insult to injury, now they say you got to have it for literally everything. And now all kinds of private businesses and everybody else are demanding it because it's the de facto use for identification. Yeah, that's right. You can't even have a financial instrument without your Social Security number on it for identification, right? Well, now I'll tie this together for you because you think, well, Sam, you're out of line. Come on. It's not going to be that way. Yeah, it is. 28% of U.S. voters. Oh, we'll talk about it. Voter verification is what we're talking about. 28%. You ask me what? I'll make you wait till the end of the pause to find out. But I'm telling you right now, not to be used for identification purposes. Just hold that firmly in your head, and we'll continue in seconds on Liberty Roundtable Live.
Have you ever had great honey? No, I mean really good, all-natural, raw honey? Well, now you can, thanks to localhoneyman.com. We can ship out our locally made honey all across the U.S. So don't worry, you won't miss out. Plus, Local Honeyman has so many different flavors, like Utah Wildflower, High Desert Delight, Happy Valley, and Blackberry, just to name a few. So purchase your delicious raw honey today at localhoneyman.com.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
I believe there will come a time when we are all judged on whether or not we took a stand in defense of all life from the moment of conception until our last natural breath. As a teenager, I gave my first public speech in my church. My hand shook, my heart pounded. I thought to myself, I can't do this, but somehow I did, and because I wanted to talk about things that were important, I persisted. I chided my church as a senior in high school for not seeming to care about the not yet born, for looking the other way, and for not taking a stand on life. I will be in earnest. I will not equivocate, and I will not excuse. I will not retreat an inch, and I will be heard. One thing I promise you, I will always take a stand for life.
So the debate, ladies and gentlemen, is putting elections or voter control at the federal level. I think it's a disaster. What does the general government do right? Sadly, the answer is not very much is the point, right? So here's the deal. I say that the give them an inch, they'll take a mile plan is the problem here, or reality is the problem here. Chuck Schumer saying SAVE Act dead on arrival. I hope he's right. Okay, listen to me. Remember, the Social Security number was meant to be used not for identification purposes. It was merely a, social safety net for people. Help them get a savings account so they can take care of themselves in retirement. But then we found out it was a Ponzi scheme. You pay as you go. So the money that I put in over the last 40 years is already spent. It's already gone. I'm going to have to steal from my kids to take my money. Now, on one hand, I don't want to steal from my kids. On the other hand, hey, they've taken from me my whole life. I about have to, because they've robbed me of my ability to save for my own retirement, right? All right, well, anyway, I digress, except for remember, the Social Security card was not to be used for identification purposes. Now, listen up. It's used for everything, right? Here's what's already on the table, and we don't even have the SAVE Act passed. Listen up. This is according to thegatewaypundit.com. Great article up there. Check it out. They deserve credit. 28% of U.S. voters, well, their voter verifications, the problem with them is that, well, they have no match at the Social Security Administration. Did you hear me? 28% of U.S. voter verifications have no match at Social Security Administration. Well, if you're trying to identify me, I thought the Social Security number was not meant to be used for identification purposes. In fact, it used to have that right on your Social Security card. They've taken it off, but go find an old person that hasn't updated their Social Security card, and you'll see that writing on there. It's true. And now they're already saying, well, the problem is, hey, 28% of people that we try to verify their citizenship or their whatever, we look up in the Social Security database and it's not there. What the heck? See, they're already trying to now make the Social Security number the de facto database for voting. Do you want the Social Security Administration to be the de facto database for your voting? See, I don't. And it's already being talked about, already being brought up. Well, let's go back to it won't be used for identification purposes, shall we? Donald, why don't you bring up that little historical factoid, my friend? And why don't you say we can't have it, we can't do it, we got to make sure that Social Security is not even used for identification purposes. Let's get back to its core mission. Well, its core mission is communist and socialist, and it's a Ponzi scheme. So the Social Security Administration ought to be really shut down, in fact. But I realize there's the real and there's the ideal. And in the real, hey, millions of Americans have been promised. We've made promises as a society to the people. And so we've got to keep those. How do you then bring the plane down safely and not crash the plane? There's plenty of ways to do it. Plenty of plans have been put forward to accomplish that. But I'd like us to see not only to not use the Social Security Administration database for voting, I would like to furthermore not have a Social Security at all. Now, don't get me wrong. We could put a plan together that says people above 60 are going to get their normal payouts. People from 50 to 60 are going to get this reduced amount of payouts. And so on and so on. And you graduate it down based on kind of how much people have put in, and you back people out of the system. And you can even give people incentives to jump off. Sam, you know what? Your average payout would be, I don't know, $300,000. And so we're going to basically say you can either, one, take this amount, your reduced amount, or you can just take this cash and roll and do whatever you want with it. See, I'd take the cash from the Social Security Administration. I'd put it in wise investments. I'd put it in like an IRA and wise investments, or I'd slice it up. I'd pay off my house. Therefore, I wouldn't have a ton of interest that I have to pay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what you've got is the government has captured every single solitary financial transaction that you do in some way or another. You can't pull cash out. You can't do this. You can't do that, or else, hey, it'll be a note to the IRS that you did that. Oh, you got to have this money in a Trump account for kids. Hey, give them a little account backed by the government when they're kids, and then they'll be rich later. No, they won't, because the government will just rob it, steal it, manipulate it, and play games with it, and it'll be as bankrupt as everything else. I mean, the post office can't even keep afloat properly, right? So that's the problem. Who wants 28% of voter verifications to be, well, you got to link it to the Social Security Administration, don't you know? No, you don't. That's disaster. That's a huge mistake, and I'm against it. And so I know that all the conservatives are for the SAVE Act. And I know they're saying, Sam, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand it. I understand perfectly well that when you give them an inch, they take a mile. And I understand that they promise things and then renege and lie and change the game. Right? Like Social Security. No one knew when it started that it would be a Ponzi scheme. And then rob Peter to pay Paul. And, hey, you're living off your kids and grandkids and their grandkids' money when it's your turn to get paid. And they're relying on the same because the system's already upside down and bankrupt. And now that we've got the baby boomers had so many children and everything else, and now the new generation's not having any children, we don't have enough people in the pipeline to pay for the older people now. So the Ponzi scheme's in jeopardy. See what I mean? We ought not let government be in charge of these things. And I see the SAVE Act to be in this situation. 28% of U.S. voter verifications have no match at Social Security. Why does that matter? Since we're not using Social Security as an identification purpose, why does that even matter? Who cares? But see, now you got the Social Security database. Now you've got your driver's license. They've federalized that, right? It used to be a state driver's license, like from the state of Utah, or a state ID. And now it is, but it's got this federal government seal on it. So under the Donald Trump administration, they've already taken control of your ID. It's now called Real ID. And Real ID is national. And they're using that against you already by saying you can't even board a plane unless you show your, quote, real federal government approved ID. Now, pretty soon they'll just marry that. Yeah, they'll take that driver's license and marry that to your Social Security number. And then they'll match that to the gun registration database, whether you're authorized to buy a gun from the government or not, right? Oh, I know you buy a government from the private sector, but you buy a government gun too, because when you try to get your gun in Utah, it costs $12.50 just to have the government look at the databases on the federal level and say Sam Bushman's okay to buy a gun. Well, what happens when they tie those two together? You comfortable with that? See, I'm not comfortable with it at all. And then they'll tie that to some health something. Oh, yeah, we already have Obama health care, huh? So they'll tie that to your health accounts. Once they get your health accounts and whether you can have a gun account database and, your Social Security database and your driver's license database and what other items are at the federal government level, right? And they'll eventually merge that all into one big database, and then they'll start to roll out the Communist Chinese agenda, which is you have a social credit score tied to all this. Yeah, Sam, you went on the radio the other day and criticized the SAVE Act. You went on the thing the other day, Sam, and talked about you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. That's not really good behavior. The government's done a lot of good for you over the years, Samuel, and it's not appropriate for you to go ahead and... Is that where we're headed? See, sadly, I believe that is where we're headed. And that's what we've got to stop. Right now, I can't do any big financial trade. Oh, yeah. They'll merge my IRS account with my Social Security account, with my voter records, with my driver's license, or, legitimate ID that used to be a state ID. Now it's a real ID federalized. And they'll merge all that together. And now they'll say, Sam, you're a gun-toting against the IRS, criticize the SAVE Act. He didn't vote for us, says the latest administration. He didn't vote for us. That's not good. Sam should have voted for us. Well, we've got his Social Security, his driver's license, his IRS records, his vote records, his this records, his that records. Can we start to put some mojo into making life difficult for Sam and company until they learn to fly right? Oh, now we're getting back in the way kind of Hitler and those guys used to do it, kind of like the communist Chinese are doing it now, where they literally want to look at your behavior and decide that, hey, your social credit score should go up or down based on that. Your ability to borrow money, your ability to vote, your ability to do all these things will be tied to that kind of stuff. If you have a gun, if you're a syndicated talk show host, if you're whatever, then, hey, it's going to go south for you fast, buddy. And then Sam complains about this, and then they're going to say, see, Sam's just a conspiracy nut. He thinks that we're using all this against him. And then 30 years later, when Sam's an old man, they'll be like, oh, Sam was right. But, I guess the conspiracy theory became a conspiracy fact. But yet it'll just get worse. It reminds me of how George Bush monitored everybody's communications, lied about it, and said, oh, yeah, we're just monitoring international terrorist-type communications. And so if you're not involved with a terrorist, you don't have anything to worry. And then it came out, oh, he's monitoring all phone calls. Oh, now you take that monitoring of all my communications, all my texts, all my conversations, all my emails, all my whatever, Slacks or because the government backdoors. Now you say, we're going to marry that to the IRS / voter ID / Social Security number / driver's license / banking information / health information / financial accounts for retirement information, private or otherwise / and the database grows. And the dossiers on each of us get more abusive, more controlling, more regulatory. Well, the viewership of many of the networks is melting down. I'll get into that after the break. They want truth tellers. And the sad part is in the mainstream press, we have very few truth tellers, right? And so I'm laying out the truth, folks. Hopefully this goes viral. I'm against the SAFE Act. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile. I'm against this real ID. They've already taken a mile with that. It's a disaster. Now you can't even board a plane without one or you pay a big fine. They do that too. They act kind at first and then comes the fines, right? Oh boy. Hang tight. Oh, seatbelt laws. Same thing, right? Don't wear a seatbelt, get a fine. We won't pull you over for it. That's what they used to say. Pretty soon they'll start pulling you over for it. See how they take a mile every time? All right, hold on. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about CNN viewership in seconds. You're watching Liberty Roundtable live.
Protecting your liberties. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Now that federal agents will be able to arrest criminal illegal aliens in Minnesota jails instead of having to chase them in the streets, Trump border czar Tom Holman says he is ending the large-scale immigration crackdown in Minnesota.
Arresting a public safety threat in the safety and security of a jail is safer for the alien, it's safer for the officer, and safer for the community. I think we all can agree on that.
Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison is testifying this morning on Capitol Hill, a Senate hearing focusing on immigration enforcement. A fiery Attorney General Bondi clashed with Democrat lawmakers during a contentious hearing on Capitol Hill. The issue, her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case. Bondi says while the Biden administration sat on the Epstein files for 4 years, the Trump Justice Department has released millions of pages.
You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it.
A combative Bondi slung insults as she faced questions about the Justice Department's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files.
This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to get, you're a failed politician.
Bondi vigorously defended her department, but repeatedly refused to directly answer questions.
As Attorney General, you're siding with the perpetrators and you're ignoring the victims.
Greg Clugston, Washington.
As the San Francisco teacher strike drags on, the New York Post reports the teachers union is urging parents to refrain from homeschooling their children. The school district has provided parents with home study materials for their kids. Mexico sending 2 shiploads of humanitarian aid to Cuba as U.S. sanctions aggravate the communist island's energy crisis. On Wall Street, stocks are mixed. The Dow is up 36 points, while the Nasdaq trading 172 points lower. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Have you noticed losing weight is harder than it used to be? You're eating better and exercising, but the scale barely moves? The real problem isn't willpower, it's metabolic dysfunction. And standard dieting just makes it worse. PhD Weight Loss has helped thousands fix the root cause of stubborn weight. Take their free metabolic assessment at fixmyweightloss.com. Fixmyweightloss.com. It's quick, personalized, and shows why your body is resisting weight loss so you know exactly what to fix. Visit fixmyweightloss.com. That's fixmyweightloss.com.
From Lionsgate and Kingdom Story Company.
I Can Only Imagine by Mercy Me, one of the most beloved songs of all time.
I mean, what did you think was going to happen? You're just going to ride off into the sunset, no more struggles or pain?
Comes the highly anticipated I Can Only Imagine 2.
God is in fire. I mean, it's beautiful.
Imagine what God can do again. I Can Only Imagine 2. In theaters February 20th. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
As a parent, is receiving a faith-based, character-focused education for your children difficult to find? Do you believe that godly principles should be a central component in your child's education? Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character. For over 40 years, American Heritage School has been educating both hearts and minds, bringing out academic excellence. This is the school where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. With American Heritage School's Advanced Distance Education Program, distance is no longer an issue. With an accredited LDS-oriented curriculum from kindergarten through 12th grade, your children can attend from anywhere in the world. American Heritage School will prepare your child for more than a job. It will prepare them for life. To learn more, visit american-heritage.org. That's american-heritage.org.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcasts at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
All right, I told you I'd get to the issues with all these networks having trouble, and I'm going to talk about why in a minute. But before we do that, a quick late-breaking news piece that just came out this morning. Tom Holman just held a press conference announcing that the Trump administration is ending its aggressive immigration enforcement operation in Minnesota. So I find that good news. Not because I don't want him to be hard on illegals. I do. But if we're not very careful, we just go too far. Right? And I proposed this in the beginning, and I wish they would listen to me. You need a justice and a mercy plan when it comes to immigration. Justice for those who are hardened criminals, right? And you need to go with a very simple plan. Hey, are we talking about criminals? I don't mean everybody's in the country so they're a criminal. Okay? That's factual, but it isn't the dividing line. Have you caused problems in America for innocent citizens? If you have, it's a way different ballgame than if you have not. Okay? Anyway, Tom Holman says, I have proposed and Donald Trump agrees that this surge operation concludes. Yeah. I think it's good news. Because again, it's not that I think that it's not good to protect the border or to deport. It is. And believe it or not, there's record numbers of self-deportations happening now, which I find is great news. Right? So that's great news. Good for Tom Holman and company. I've always liked Tom. I think Tom is a straight shooter. I think he's doing his very best. And I commend him. And the more peaceful we can be when it comes to deportation, the more we can separate the real criminals from good people that wanted just a good life in America and who are willing to work hard for it. There's a big difference in that. Or people that came to no fault of their own, or people that have married someone. You could put restrictions in place that say if you stay married, you're a citizen. If you get a divorce, I don't know, because you might have got married just to get into the country. Same thing with the anchor baby thing. We've got to change a lot of these laws and get them right. In the meantime, I support a justice tempered with a mercy immigration plan. All right, CNN viewership collapses. I kid you not. It's been collapsing since 2016 when Donald Trump rolled down the escalator. They mocked him, made fun of him. They had Trump derangement syndrome, psychotic against him, and it's only resulting in less and less viewership for these people. CNN viewership collapses since 2016, while the Washington Post ends up laying off massive swaths of staff. It's huge, folks. CNN's audience has sharply declined, with prime time viewership reportedly be down from 1.3 million in 2016. They say then dropping to 500,000 in recent data. That means in the last decade, CNN has lost 2/3 of its audience. The network's total day and primetime ratings have also seen significant declines, hitting record lows. They're losing their key demographics. They're struggling to retain viewers amid, listen, they call it changing media consumption habits. Why do you think there's changing media consumption habits? A lot of it could be new tech. A lot of it could be it's great to watch something not when it's on the 24/7 radio or TV channel, but you can start it when you want to, like a podcast, and you can listen or watch. So it's part of it's changing in viewing habits, because things that we didn't have before, we have now every day, right? Before they used to say, hey, let's see if we can have that recorded and watch it later. And it was a cool novelty. Now it's the de facto default. So that's changing a lot of the reason, right? But the Washington Post recently laid off a huge portion of its workforce. They say reports are showing that 1/3 to nearly half of their newsroom got eliminated in massive cuts. Well, you think it's because Jeff Bezos can't afford it? Is that what you think? Oh, that's the Washington Post, yeah. So you got to wonder, what's up with that? They say 2 of Americans' most prominent legacy news organizations are facing stark declines. One in audience size, the other in newsroom capacity. They say highlighting growing challenges for traditional media or legacy media in the modern landscape. Now, I agree that things are changing, okay? And when things change, and people watch differently, I mean, you can have everything recorded, or you can see a podcast. So just think about this. I do a 2-hour radio show every day, and a lot of radio listeners still listen. I'm grateful for you. I consider you my family. I know a lot of you listen to us because it gives you some comfort and a friend and somebody to kind of share the news, celebrations and disappointments together. And, that's why I'm live on a lot of the holidays and everything else, because I get all that. I'm not live every holiday. I try to balance my family and my obligations to the radio audience, and I try to do the best that I can for both. Anyway, I'm digressing, except to say this. Nowadays, you got a modern YouTube. And the modern media is teaching you to swipe and click and tap and swipe and click and tack and scroll and doom scroll. And people are falling into that, and everything's getting shorter and shorter and shorter as a result. Like the country song says, my attention span's done turned off. Well, there's reasons, because these modern tools are programming brains to do that, to be disrupted over and over and over, to have short stints of super dopamine brain promoting, whatever you want to call it, right? And so everybody's used to that. Well, the 2-hour radio show still exists because I still believe in the radio listeners and I still believe in long form. But now you can watch a 45-minute version of the TV show. Well, think about that. If I take an hour of radio and make it 1 hour of TV, it's pretty close. But if I do a 2-hour radio show and only do one TV hour, now you're chopping it in half for TV, right? And then if I take that and I drop it down to, say, less than a 60-second teaser clip, most people might just watch the teaser clip. Many people, I've had friends say, Sam, I don't listen to your show. I don't have 2 hours a day, but I read your show notes. And I get the take that way. So see, all these opportunities are afforded now that weren't there before. And I don't deny that's a lot of the changes. And the problem with the mainstream press is they have hired people at way, way, way too expensive of a cost. When you hire a late night host and give them $10, $20 million a year, and it literally costs $50 million to produce this TV show per year or something crazy like that, no wonder it's unsustainable. Guys like me can do it for literally not even pennies compared to dollars. I mean, we're talking about, they might produce it for $100 and I might produce it for 0.3 of a cent in comparison. I know that's not real, but I'll do it for less than a penny, at least dollars and cents comparatively. Okay? So where they have a late night TV show, one of these clowns, and it costs them, say, $50 million a year to produce it. Hey, I'm producing my whole show on how much money? 60 grand a year, 100 grand a year total, maybe. And if you want to include what I should be paid and everything else, maybe 150,000 a year. That would be if I had some advertising money to promote the show, which I don't have at this point. I'm just giving an example. But see, think about that. 150 grand, and that gives me a little bit of advertising money just for my show per year. And these guys are doing like 50 mil. They're paying their host 20 million. What is that in comparison to what my show would cost to run? Even if you say, well, let's use $1 million for Liberty Roundtable Live. 2-hour show, 1 hour TV show daily. What if they just gave me $1 million to do it? That would still be like 1/50 of what it costs them to produce shows, or less. Well, I don't even get close to that. I don't even spend on my show $250,000 a year. And some people would say, well, Sam, that's why your audience isn't as big. Well, you're right. But you got to have money to advertise. But at the end of the day, when things get tight financially, you don't believe me? Ask CNN, ask the Washington Post, ask other big corporations that are bleeding money left and right. Hey, maybe you pay your host, instead of $20 million, maybe you say the host is only worth $200 grand a year. $200 grand a year is a killer salary for most people. But why are these, talk show hosts rock stars? It used to be the top 10 hosts would just make all the money and everybody else wouldn't make anything. Now we're starting to find ways where a lot of people are making decent money. They might not be $20 billion a year contract for 5 years straight or something. But hey, they make 200, 300, 400 grand. They're doing really, really, really well. See, I think we need to return to days like that. And I think the sooner these companies realize that, hey, you can let go of a big paid host. You can work a deal to put Liberty Roundtable Live on. Now you get 2-hour radio show or 45-minute TV show and some teaser clips and some promotion on social media. And you got radio and YouTube and Rumble and all the different social media services. And you got a guy who's delighted to work for $200,000 a year. And don't get me wrong, I don't make $200,000. I'm not saying that I do. I'm just saying if you pay me $200,000 a year for my base salary, I'd love it. And you could produce my whole show for, if you did that, probably $500,000 a year. If we beefed up the staff and had some advertising promotion money, it's only $500,000 a year compared to those guys that spend $50 million plus on their. Wow. You wonder why they're bleeding, huh? I've got more. You're watching Sam Bushman. This is Liberty Roundtable Live.
Scott Bradley here. Most Americans are painfully aware that the nation is on the wrong track and in dire straits. Unfortunately, most political pundits only nibble around the edges when they claim to address the issues. Even worse, many of the so-called solutions are simply rewarmed servings of what got us into the mess we currently face. And the politicians think we're so gullible and naive that we'll buy their lies that they have reformed and now understand where they led us astray. Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that they simply wish to continue to hold power. The solution to America's challenges is found in returning to the timeless principles found in the United States Constitution. My book and lecture series will reawaken in Americans an understanding and love of the principles which made this nation the freest, most prosperous, happiest, and most respected nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com and order my book and lectures to begin the restoration of this great nation.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org.
All right, so I just asked ChatGPT. I said, hey, how much is it for the average syndicated radio show? And they say $200,000 to $500,000 a year is a pretty modest budget. I don't even get near that, folks. I'm not even close to the 200. Okay? I'm telling you right now, it probably costs 60 or 70 grand to produce my show. If you want to go ahead and pay me too, maybe 100, something. I don't know the number, but it sure isn't, 200 to 500,000. I'll tell you that right now. And increasingly, radio syndication includes social media managers, video editing for clips, podcast repackaging. So the costs are going up for everybody because you have to do more. You can't just be a radio station anymore. You can't just do basic TV. So professional social media plus content editing teams can add $50K to $150K plus salaries to the cost of doing your radio and TV show. So now with a radio show, if you do that, hey, 200, 500 grand's nothing. You're going to blast past that. Television's even more. Syndicated TV shows. TV is much, much, much more expensive than radio, and costs are varying widely by format. Syndicated talk, variety news. Lower tier syndicated talk shows, reasonable or regional or small market, might be hundreds of thousands of dollars per episode. Yeah, a historical example, they say adjusted for inflation could consider being around 600 grand per episode. What? Major network late night daily talk shows, legendary shows like the Tonight's Show cost around $1.7 million a week. just in production. That's without even the star compensation. So see, you're well over $100 million a year. If you have 1.7 million a week, just say 2 million a week, that's over 100 grand. If you say 1.7, it's like 80 whatever grand. Then you got to pay your host. Not 80 grand, I'm sorry, 80 million. Modern equivalents with big hosts plus production teams, multiple camera crews, lighting, editing, etc. 1 million to 3 million per episode, especially in major markets. Reality, syndicated, nonfiction programming. Reality or lifestyle shows often cost less than scripted dramas, but it's still significant. Some unscripted shows, 100K, 500K per episode. Scripted syndicated series or even more. They say hundreds of thousands to millions per episode. Additional TV cost factors, host, talent, salaries. They're often the biggest single line item. Star hosts, co-hosts, announcers, recurring guests all cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per season. Writers, producers, editors, camera operators, lighting, post-production, music, lights, music rights, set costs add up big time. Then you got social media, digital clipping, online segment production for YouTube, TikTok. You got to have separate teams for this stuff. Tens of thousands to hundred thousands of dollars annually. Type of show, typical cost. Small syndicated radio show national, $200K to $500K plus per year. Large syndicated radio show major talent, $500K to $1 million a year. See, I fall somewhere in there. Low-end local syndicated TV show, $100K, $600K per episode. Whoa, not per year now, right? Major talk late night, $1 million to $3 million per episode. Reality TV syndicated, $100K, $500K per episode. Scripted drama comedy, $1 million to $10 million per episode. These are ballpark ranges. We don't have the real cost. Why the huge variance, you say, Sam? Radio can be relatively affordable to produce. Big costed, people not gear. So it's not too bad. You could do a show for a few hundred grand a year. TV almost always costs orders of magnitude more. Multi-camera production. We can just go on and on. Editors, writers, social media. The list goes on and on. So that gives you an idea, folks, of what's going on. Well, we run the Loving Liberty radio networks and TV networks right now. We run the whole network on less than what they're saying a radio show would cost to run. We're doing radio and TV and everything, and not just a show. We're doing a network for less than the 200 to 500 grand mark they talk about. People ought to be listening to me on how to run the media. I've been in it for 30 years, and I'm not bleeding money left and right. Anyway, there you have it. A record number of illegal aliens are voluntarily leaving the country under Trump's directive. That's kind of interesting. That's good news, in my opinion, because then you don't have to have these armed raids that, create all kinds of complications, right? Anyway, so start declines in audience size and everything else. What I recommend these people do is they break these massive host contracts. That's your biggest line item. And you're paying so much money, it's not even reasonable. Right? And so you need to rein that in. And the best way you do it is you get hosts that'll work for reasonable dollars. You don't need to pay a host 5, 10, 20 million. You pay a good host a couple of $100 grand, they should be plenty happy. It's a good salary. Right? If you paid me 200 grand a year just to do my show, I could quit all my other jobs. If you pay me to run the radio network and TV network and do a show, hey, I should at least get 200 grand, right? I don't make anywhere near that now. I'm just telling you. And that would be massive savings for these kind of people. All right. FBI Director Kash Patel's in the news. He revealed new images have been recovered showing a mask and and glove I guess it's photos of the mask and the glove and everything else for somebody who was tampering with the cameras at the home of Nancy Guthrie. That's Savannah Guthrie's mother. They still don't have leads in the story, but they've got, some things. They found a glove. They were able to get a lot of images. They think they even have some video that can help them kind of identify somebody. These images, they say, were obtained from residual data in back-end systems, whatever that means, with efforts coordinated between the FBI and the Pima County sheriffs. They discovered a trail of blood outside, and they've been closely following the ransom demands. Savannah Guthrie, that's the mom's daughter, shared new images online pleading for the public to help, emphasizing that her mother still be alive, and I pray she's still alive, folks. I really do. This is a horrible, sad, sad, sad case. The FBI has set a reward of up to $50,000 for information leading to the arrest and to Nancy's return. Well, I think that's great, but I think they ought to offer a whole lot more than $50,000. The ransom people are asking for millions. You might at least make it 100, 150, 200 grand. I mean, all you'd have to do is get a good talk show host that's like big time, and where it costs, 500 grand for episode, and say, I'm going to skip my episode today. We're going to spend the 500 grand to offer some real money to go ahead and get Savannah free. Now, I can't do that because I don't have that kind of money. I'd have to offer $100 or something. But I'm just making a point that see some of these networks could do that. They'd get a ton of media coverage. We're up in the $50,000. We're going to put 450 grand in. We're going to skip one episode of our show. Now there's 500 grand to try to get information to get this lady back. I would do it if I could. If I was really, spending that kind of money per episode and making $20 million a year, I'd just do that without even blinking an eye. Anyway, our prayers are that they get her back, and I think they need to increase the reward for this thing big time. Final story before the end of the hour. The U.S. will send 200 troops to Nigeria. Why? To train Nigerian armed forces to combat Islamic terrorists. I think this is a horrible idea. Again, we're waging war. We're playing games with what war means, though. U.S. and Nigerian officials informed the Wall Street Journal that these troops will join existing U.S. military personnel in Nigeria in the next couple of weeks. The U.S. forces will assist in intelligence operations to target future strikes, but will not engage in direct combat. So that's how they play the game, ladies and gentlemen. What they do is they say, we're going to go ahead and fund this thing. We're going to go ahead and provide intelligence and technology and tools and training and everything under the sun, but we're not going to fight. We'll assist in, intelligence. We'll do all these different things. We'll do everything but fight. President Trump designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern on October 31st due to the killing of Christians in that country. Well, I understand. I don't disagree. I don't think we should kill anybody, Christians or non-Christians. The U.S. and Nigeria already conducted collaborative strikes on what they call terrorist hotspots on Christmas Day 2025. So see, they've been doing this already. They're just beefing it up. In every area, we see Trump beefing up more war. The U.S. previously donated 24 armored vehicles to Nigeria on January the 7th, 2016, a long time ago, right? To combat this insurgency of terrorism. Folks, we need to quit fighting wars everywhere. We need to lead by following the example of the Prince of Peace. After all, if we repent and keep his commandments, he promises us that he will heal our land and protect us, even from terrorists. That's right. Trust the Constitution and your God, will you please? I'm Sam Bushman. Thanks for being alongside for the ride. This broadcast is brought to you by freewatercoinco.com. And we are syndicated by the Loving Liberty Network, lovingliberty.net, for all things radio and TV and all things media. God bless the United States of America.